Welcome to another After Effects tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to have a look at keyframe animation. And keyframe animation is the basic way that After Effects animates anything. So it could be a moving image, or you could animate the transparency of an object or anything else. So I'm going to go through and show you just a couple of ways that you can do it, starting from the very basics. So we'll create a new composition. So we'll go Composition, New Composition. I'm going to go Preset, and I'll make it HDTV 1080 25, so full HD and 25 frames per second. The duration, I don't need it to be that long. I might just do 7 seconds, so 07, and click OK. Alright, so let's put in a shape that we can animate. Up here at the top of the toolbars, you can see that we've got a rectangle here. If I click on the triangle next to it, I can choose other things. So I might go for this example, just the star tool. Then you can come over, left click and drag, and you can draw your shape. Okay, so let's have a look at animating this star. Alright, now in our composition, in our sequence, you can see that we've got our shape layer 1 here. Now if I go down transform, you can see that there are a number of options. These are kind of the default options for any layer. So you've got anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. Now in After Effects, anything that has this stopwatch next to it, you can animate, okay? So if I'll go to the start of the composition, and I'll click on rotation, okay? Just left click once on the stopwatch. You can see that as soon as I click that, it was highlighted, and it's put this yellow diamond into my timeline, and that is called a keyframe. If I go along to say 2 seconds, and I come back to rotation, and I can either do it like this, just animate however I want, come back, and I'll press the space bar to play. Okay, good. So we've got 2 points. What I did notice with the star though is that it's kind of not rotating around its center. So I might fix that up. I'll show you how to do it. It's another good tip. I'll delete the second keyframe, so there's no animation now. Okay. Now this point here is actually what's rotating around. So and that's called the anchor point. So if I grab the anchor point, so you can see the anchor point here, and I can just move that around until my star is in the center. Okay, and it's probably pretty close to there. So now I'll go over 2 seconds, and I'll do my rotation again. You can see that that's doing a much better job at rotating it around that center. Okay, so I mean the basics of keyframe animation is you've got 2 keyframes or more, and you're telling it to do something here, or to be in a position, and then you're telling it to be in a different position here, and After Effects will animate between the two. So again, let's say we've got this star twirling around and we want it to dissolve out. We can animate the opacity. So I'll click it, and just once, and then I'll go along to the 2 seconds, and I'll take it from 100% down to 0. Okay, let's play it. Okay, so we're animating between those 2 points. I'll just delete that second keyframe so it doesn't fade out, just so we can have a look at some other animations we can do. So scale is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll click on the stopwatch for scale, and I might bring that down. Okay, really small. We'll go down to 0. I'm going to come along to 1, and I'll scale it up, and then I'll come over to 2, and I'll scale it back down to 0. And let's see what we have. Okay, so that's our animation. Alright, let's have a look at position. So let's say over here, I'll click on the stopwatch and I'll move my star somewhere. Then I'll go along and I might just come back here just so I can move it easy, and I'll move it over to the right. And then I'll just grab that keyframe by left clicking and I'll drag it across to the 2 seconds, and the first one I'll take back to 0. Okay, so hopefully from that you can see kind of how basic the animation process is. You really give it one keyframe and then move along and do something else. Now After Effects also has this really good function in it called motion blur, which is great for animation, particularly in compositing when you want to make elements look a bit more realistic. And what it does is emulate the motion of an object. So to enable that, up here we've got this icon that looks like a bouncing basketball. So I'll click on that. And then you need to also enable it for each layer, but we can see there's no options here for that. But if I click the toggle switches and modes at the bottom, you can see that these change. And you can see that we've got a little icon of that same bouncing ball. So I'm going to click on that for our layer. And I think you probably just saw that, how that section of it's now kind of blurred. If I click off, you'll see it normally again. Okay, so let's have a look at it normally. Okay, that's our animation. And then this time I'll click on the motion blur. Okay, and it just adds a bit more life as well as kind of replicating that motion. It's particularly important, as I said, with compositing when you want things to look more realistic when they move. Okay, so it's a good handy tip. Okay, now before I said that you can animate anything with a stopwatch, so that also applies to effects. So if I go over to effects and presets over here, and I type in maybe glow. There's lots of different sorts of glows. So let's find this one, Stylize Glow. I'm just going to drag it over and drop it onto my star. Okay, and you can see that it's kind of brightened it up. If I click away, you can see what that's like. Let's change some of the settings. So glow radius, and you can see what that's doing behind there. It's just blowing that up. And glow threshold, might bring that to maybe 74. And you can also change the glow intensity. Okay, so that's now what our star looks like. Okay, good. Now say I wanted to animate this glow coming on and off. Let's have a look at up at our effects. And you can see that we've got stopwatches for virtually everything in the glow effect. And all effects will be like this. You will find stopwatches in there. And that means you can animate those settings. So if I click on glow intensity, so I'm in the middle of my composition when my star is the largest, and I'll click on glow intensity. Okay, I'll go along to the end, and I'll take that glow intensity, I'll just left click once, and I'll go to 0. Okay, and I'll go back to the beginning, and I'll do the same, 0. So it's animating from 0 through to 3.1 and down to 0 again. So let's have a look. Okay, it is kind of subtle because it's a glow, but it is actually animating that glow on and off. Okay. Okay, so that's the basics of keyframe animation. I hope you found that useful.